Thank you to the Wolfeboro Lions Club for underwriting nutritional wisdom. The Wolfeboro Lions Club is committed to helping the community with health concerns such as diabetes prevention and preservation of sight and hearing. The Wolfeboro Lions Club meets on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month in the 1812 room at the Wolfeboro Inn. Members of the community are encouraged to attend meetings or visit the website e-clubhouse.org/sites/Wolfeboro for more information.
Hi, this is Patty Walker, registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator, and your host for Nutrition Wisdoms. I am very excited to introduce our guest. Chris Keller is a compassionate counselor who works at the Stillwater's Health Center with me on 6 Grove Street in Wolfeboro, and she specializes in the mind-brain-body connection. And today we're going to talk about everything we want to know about stress. So welcome.
Well, thank you, Patty. It's great to be here.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you. Believe me, I think that the viewers are going to watch this show more than once because you have a lot of good information to share. So let's just dive right in. We all feel stress, or we say, oh, I'm so stressed out, but what exactly does that mean?
Well, like you said, stress is a part of life. We all feel it. So let's give a definition of stress.
Okay.
So we can say that the definition of stress is the collective body and emotional responses to any situation in life or event in life, real or perceived, that disrupts the body's balance, and then the individual needs to do something to bring it back into balance. So it is a good thing. So let's look at the components of stress. So there's 2 components that we need to address. So first is the stressor. And the stressor is a situation or event that happens in life, and it can be real or it's something that we perceive. Or as Robert Sapolsky says in his book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, he says anything in the outside world that knocks you out of balance. And that is what we perceive as the stressor.
Okay, and stress could be anything from an unhappy job or an unfortunate medical or financial situation.
Yes, yeah. So then we have the stress response. So the stressor, like you just said, and so then our body responds. So it's also known as the fight or flight response, which we've all heard about. And this provides our bodies with the energy that we need to meet or adapt to that threat or that challenge.
Okay.
So it prepares us to deal with something big.
Gotcha.
It begins in the brain, in our emotional center with the amygdala. And so the amygdala is our alarm system. So if the amygdala believes that there is a threat, it calls into action the endocrine system and the sympathetic nervous system.
And the sympathetic nervous system is the fight and flight.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes, it revs us up. So as in the slide that you see, so the brain, the amygdala, perceives, there's some kind of stimuli that's coming at us. And I'd like to clarify that it can be external or it can be a thought in our heads.
Of course.
It can be a thought, a belief, an image that we have in our heads. And so, but the amygdala doesn't know whether it's real or whether it's not real. But if it believes that this is threatening and challenging, then it's going to call into action the endocrine system and the sympathetic nervous system. So as you can see on the sympathetic nervous system side, which is the immediate, that's our first response, that is going to send out chemicals, and it's going to cause the adrenal medulla to respond with adrenaline.
Okay.
And then that's going to make our bodies be able to be right there and address whatever's coming at us. So through the endocrine series, we have the release of chemicals, and that affects the adrenal cortex, which then releases cortisol, and then our bodies get prepared.
Yeah. So what you were basically, if I understand it, if there's a real fire, oh my God, my house is on fire, or like if you've lived through a fire and you just see a fire on TV, the same thought could cause a stress response in the body.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned cortisol, and cortisol is the one I think most of us have heard of, but what does cortisol do in your body?
So cortisol increases the sugars in our bloodstream. It enhances the brain's use of glucose and enhances the availability of substances that repair our tissues. So it's bringing in the immune system. So now we get the immune system involved.
So cortisol is helpful then. So what I heard was it gets glucose to the brain and the muscles for energy, so that we can think clearly and use our strength to perhaps do ultra-human tasks, such as you hear people that have lifted cars off or have lifted trees off of people that have fallen. So that's what cortisol helps us do?
Yes, yeah. That's and also the adrenaline too. So our body is full of adrenaline, full of cortisol, and we can do superhuman things.
Well, that does sound important.
Yeah. So our stress response is necessary for survival. But it's just best that we don't overuse it.
Yeah, because overusing would cause more cortisol to be released, and I know that people who are chronically under stress do have higher levels of cortisol, and that affects our health in so many ways. It can disrupt, as you say, it disrupts proper digestion, it can enhance food cravings, it elevates the blood sugars, and it actually increases belly fat. If people are stressed, they have a really difficult time losing weight. And then the other thing, serotonin is a feel-good hormone that's produced in our intestinal tract. 75-80% of the serotonin our brain uses is produced in the intestinal tract. And
wow, that's amazing.
I know, and stress actually reduces the production of the serotonin too. So it's a really big issue that disrupts our health. So how do we fix it?
Yeah, just like to point out, as you're saying all this, it's just like that gut-brain connection.
Oh, absolutely.
Is so huge,
Yep.
so huge.
Yep.
And, we really are realizing that now.
Yeah.
So, to just even realize that and go, okay, so how do we address this? So we need to look at the two components of stress.
The stressor and the stress response?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. So if the stressor is real and we need to deal with it now to get out of danger, like you said, oh, my house is on fire, what have I got to do? So our body is like right there, okay, we run out. Or if we need to fight something.
So you save someone before you run out.
Yes,
Call 911, do something.
Yeah. So the fight response or the flee response.
Right.
That's our immediate response. And so that's acute stress.
Yep.
And that is stress in the here and now. That's what our bodies are made to do. But what if we perceive that there's a threat when it's really not a threat? It's not life-threatening. And there is nothing to run from. There is nothing to fight. But
We still
our
think it's
system says...
Yep. I wake up every night worried about a house fire, you know?
So it still sees it as a threat, and it continues. And if it continues, then we're dealing with chronic stress, and that's bad.
So, here's the $64,000 question.
Yeah.
All viewers want to know, as do I too. What's the best way to deal with chronic stress?
Well, the first line of defense is quieting down the nervous system.
Okay.
So we need to quiet down the nervous system. So there's the feedback loop. The nervous system is revved up. It's going to keep telling the amygdala, we're in danger, we're in danger. So we got this cycle. So we need to get right in there somehow, quiet down the nervous system. And one of the best and quickest ways to do it is to take a breath. A deep, slow breath with intention.
Okay.
And since the stress response activates the sympathetic nervous system, the breathing is the fastest and most direct way to slow this part of the nervous system down. And the best thing is, we all know how to breathe.
And it's free.
Right.
Well, do you have any special techniques that you recommend?
Yeah, well, we could try a simple technique if you want.
Sure.
Right here.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's begin with the most simplest, and that's the full belly breath.
Okay.
And we all have seen a full belly breath if we've seen a baby breathe.
Oh, of course.
Babies quieting their nervous system.
They have that belly that expands.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's expanding the belly so that the lungs are full. It slows our breathing down, which quiets our sympathetic nervous system, gets oxygen to all our cells.
Okay. So let's
Do
do
you
it.
want to try?
Yeah.
Okay. So first, and let me say that the full belly breath can be done anywhere. You're driving the car, standing in line in groceries. You know, it can be done anywhere. We're going to do a more practice of the full belly breath.
Okay.
So that people know that, you know, you can do it anywhere and people don't even know you're doing it. But if you want to make it part of your life to help, like, okay, I know immediately what I can do, this is a good way to practice it.
Yeah. Okay.
So first we get comfortable, and so say we're sitting in our chair,
Yeah.
and you put get both feet settled on the floor. And just take a moment and maybe just inhale and roll your shoulders up a little and roll the shoulders back. And already you start feeling
Yeah.
a little bit of something.
And the feet on the ground is to help us keep grounded with the earth.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep. And it aligns our spinal cord, where the sympathetic nervous system is in. So there's no little crinks in it.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay. So
Feet are on the ground.
yeah.
Shoulders rolled back.
Yeah, but not
Not-
stiff. So even just try pressing back in the chair a little
Okay.
bit and feel that support.
Yeah.
And then just come forward slightly. Okay, so we're going to inhale, and if you can, through the nostrils. But the intention is, as you inhale, expanding the belly.
Gotcha.
Okay? So begin to just inhale, expanding the belly, filling those lungs, and now just slowly let the breath out. And if you can, through the nose, just making that out breath, that exhale, slow and calm.
And what about exhaling through the mouth? Does that work?
It will, yes, yeah. There's different reasons to breathe through the nose. Warms the air, it filters. So if we can, but there are a lot of people who mouth breathe. So, you know, it's
I mean, there are some medical conditions that may make it
Yes.
more difficult to hold that breath. And so, you know, they may have to exhale through the mouth. And I know
Yeah.
some of the yoga practices will say,
Yes, yeah. And that's a great one, especially for acute stress. That, letting it out for the acute stress.
Gotcha.
But if you're doing a practice and you've been under a lot of chronic stress, that slow, gentle inhale and exhale, and even doing, even on the count, 2 counts,
Yep.
inhale, And eventually you're going to be able to do it longer. Eventually the exhale you can make a little bit longer because that actually is more direct with the sympathetic nervous system. It's going to quiet it better.
All right.
But it's mostly filling the belly, and you're recognizing, oh, I'm intentionally taking a breath
You're
and
in the
noticing my
present.
body.
Wow.
So just focusing on that breath and breathing
Yeah.
with intention will begin to calm down that nervous system.
And there's no perfect way of doing it. It's just doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I actually tell my clients who come in with digestive disorders, especially those with reflux or GERD, which is gastrointestinal reflux disease, heartburn, irritable bowel syndrome, said the first thing you have to do is calm down the sympathetic nervous system. And so I will suggest taking, a minute before they sit down to eat, to do exactly what you did.
Great.
And do 2 or 3 breaths during that period.
Perfect.
Because it actually can help transition over to the rest and digest part of the
Yeah.
nervous system,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
the parasympathetic. And
Yeah.
so if
Yeah.
if you eat when you're stressed, you're only setting yourself up for problems. So if you're a high stressed person or you're stressed at the moment, that breathing can definitely help.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the parasympathetic, because that's what we are doing. We are quieting down the sympathetic so that the parasympathetic, that rest and digest,
Right.
so that the blood and the oxygen can come back
Yes.
into our internal organs.
Right.
So it doesn't have to rush to our arms and hands and legs and
Right.
feet to get us out or
Exactly.
get us ready. So so quieting down the nervous system. That's
okay.
perfect.
So that's great. Any other tips regarding quieting the nervous system?
Well, it allows us to be in the present moment. And so when we're in the present moment, now we can look at that stressor to evaluate if it is life-threatening or not.
I'm really glad you mentioned the present again, because so many people, their stressors are worrying about things that haven't even happened yet. But I keep thinking about, when you had mentioned this, I was driving home the other day, and there's a deer in the field across the street, and there's always deer in the field across the street. But sometimes they're not the same deer, and so some deer, when they see the car drive up or see me in my yard, will take off. They'll immediately run, perceiving I'm danger, I'm assuming. But other times the deer will lift its head, may just go 5 or 10 feet, and then look at me and continue to graze. And then there are some that will look up and say, "Hey, how you doing?" and just, put their head down and continue to eat. So apparently I'm not a threat to those ones.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah,
because they're assessing the situation.
yep.
Yeah.
Is it real or
Yeah.
is it perceived?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not a threat to deer, so just
Yeah.
just putting that out there. So,
Yeah, and if the danger is not real or imminent, then we have time to deal with it by attending to it in some way, getting help, whatever, or just letting it go, realizing that it's not real.
Okay, so you'd mentioned attending to it. So what do you mean by that? Because I'm assuming that would be more individual.
Yes, yeah, totally, yeah. But we all can fill our toolbox with stress resilience resources that feel right for each individual. So some of the more physical resources might be, the breathing exercises,
I
'cause
think
those are
everyone should do
immediate.
that one.
Yes, for sure. Learning meditation, taking a yoga class, something that can really bring your whole body, because it's not just in the head, it's our whole body that's experiencing the sympathetic nervous system
Oh, absolutely,
responses.
yeah.
So, it is, our bodies are the first place that help us quiet it down. So doing some of these, doing anything that you enjoy that can relax your body and not stimulate it.
And laughing could be a good thing.
Music.
Yep.
Even if, like, some people aren't going to, watch television, even television is going to stimulate you. It can, especially, depending on what you're watching. Because remember, that brain doesn't know whether it's real or not real.
Absolutely, and you don't know what's coming up on the TV, so it may just trigger that sympathetic response. So all right. So if nothing is done about stress, what happens then?
Well, so it's the chronic stress that we have to keep emphasizing, because remember that the stress response is good. It's not a bad thing.
It's life-saving.
Yes. So, but when it becomes chronic, as we've said, that's when it does cause all the problems. So it can lead to muscle tension, memory loss, that hip-waist ratio, that belly fat, that immune dysfunction, obesity, diabetes, and that's just to name a few of the effects of the body.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's the psychological effects, which can include depression, panic attacks, anxiety disorders, PTSD. I mean, that's extreme chronic stress, and other emotional imbalances.
Yeah. And oftentimes, the stress is treated with a pill instead of like figuring out the root cause and doing some meditative or breathing practices.
And that, and the meds, along with engaging in doing something for yourself, that is the best way to deal with it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And just to continue a little bit more about the stress, Hippocrates 2,000 years ago had mentioned all disease starts in the gut. So and stress is a huge trigger for poor gut function. So when you're stressed, your sympathetic nervous system is engaged, and what happens is the blood and nerves are, the blood flow and the oxygen, not the nerves, the blood flow and the oxygen are diverted from the digestive tract because digestion is not the priority. So what that does is it sets you up for a whole bunch of digestive problems. Reflux, irritable bowel syndrome, in extreme cases leaky gut, where the junction in our small intestines actually stay open too long and toxins and food particles can get directly into the bloodstream, which then causes a huge cascade of inflammation and puts our immune system into overdrive. Other things physiological stress can do is cause either diarrhea, which means you're not properly absorbing nutrients, or constipation, which means you're over reabsorbing toxins. And it just, there's so many things that can go wrong when in your GI tract, which is the beginning of all chronic diseases. So besides breathing, take a breath.
Yes.
Any other ways the viewers can relieve chronic stress?
Well, some other ways to help with stress, they appear really simple, but can really feel insurmountable at times. So just something like getting restful, plentiful sleep.
And I smile because so many of my clients, that's their stressor. They can't get to sleep.
I know. Yeah. And exercising regularly.
Yeah, that's
actually
everyone can do that one, but any types of activity that are better than others?
Well, if you're experiencing chronic stress, and we're really emphasizing the chronic stress here, the gentler types are best, because you're not putting more stress on the system. Because even, whether it's physical stress or emotional stress, it's still the stress response. You're still getting that whole cascade.
Right.
You're still getting the cortisol. So if you're putting more stress on the body, it's going to overtax you again. So the gentler, such as a gentle yoga class or Tai Chi, stretching, walking. If you can be outside, the better, that's perfect. But if you can't, but anything is trying to avoid the high intensity activities. As like I said,
Right.
this will only exacerbate.
Right, so those
the
are things
stress.
like competitive sports
Mm-hmm.
or high intensity interval training. You want to avoid those until you get your stress in control.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. And because when we have acute stress, it's okay to go run.
Yeah.
Take a run or really do something because you got all that adrenaline in your body and you want to get rid of it.
Yep.
But the chronic is the cortisol.
Yeah.
And that's the killer, is the cortisol. So yes, the high impact, fine for acute stress, but if you're in chronic stress, no, you
Yep.
don't want to.
Yep, and that's why some people get jitters before a competitive
Mm-hmm.
event, because
The
it's the
adrenaline.
acute stress and the adrenaline, and they perform fine.
Yeah,
but-
it helps them. It helps them. Yeah, so that's why we said acute stress can be good.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, other ways to reduce stress?
So, just getting support from family, from friends, a community organization that you might belong to.
Surrounding
getting
yourself with a
support.
good tribe of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That makes a huge difference in longevity as well as
Yes.
happiness. So
Mhm.
totally get that one.
Yep. Talking to someone, making an appointment with a counselor, therapist, just to make connection that someone, friends can be there, but they don't have the training. And so,
And sometimes you don't always want to share your deepest,
Right,
darkest with your
right.
closest,
Yes, exactly.
closest tribe members.
Yes,
And so,
yeah.
and you need a neutral
Yes,
perspective.
yes. So we
I
can hold
highly,
it. Yes.
highly
Yeah.
recommend
Yeah.
counseling.
The therapist can hold it and, bring in aspects that you might not even recognize,
Sure.
realize. So, and then another important piece is having a realistic sense of control over one's life. And
So
some
those that are type
predictability.
A that are controlling.
Yes, yes. Is it realistic or not?
Time to delegate and let go.
Yeah. So it is figuring out, or somebody who feels like they don't have any kind of control in their lives.
So routine
Can
would
go
work.
in both ways.
Yeah.
And then, so building in some kind of predictability in your
Yep.
life.
That makes
That's
sense.
stability, and yeah. And so developing self-awareness, which we've talked about, the yoga, the meditation, even the breathing can bring you into that present, which gives you that self-awareness, and then you can start looking at stresses. You can look at, okay, what's a control, what's predictable in my life. So having that self-awareness and developing that can really, really, really help in bringing us into that more control over that. That breath.
Take that breath. Yeah. Wow. Chris,
yeah.
you have given us some wonderful, wonderful feedback and suggestions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, how can people get in touch with you if they have further questions or would like to set up an appointment?
Okay. Well, as you said, we're both located at Stillwaters, which is at 6 Grove Street in Wolfeboro. And my telephone number is 802-535-5424. And if anybody is interested in my approach and what I can offer you, you can go to this website, Psychology Today, and it's www.psychology today, find a therapist, and just look up therapist in Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, and I'll be there, Christine Keller.
Nice. Thank you again.
welcome.
Your expertise is just paramount, so really, really appreciate your input on such an important subject, because all of us deal with stress.
Yes, we do. Yes.
Some is good, some isn't so good. So,
Yeah.
So finally, to wrap up the show, I always love to share a recipe. So
Okay.
being September, it is
Cool.
apple season in New Hampshire.
Nice.
And my favorites are the early Macs and the early Cortland. So that's what I would use in this recipe, but you can use any baking apple of your choice. You need to peel the apples, core them, chop them up, put them in the baking dish. Melt the coconut oil and add the cinnamon. to the coconut oil, drizzle it all over the apples, just kind of mix it up on the apples and bake it for 20-25 minutes in the oven.
Wow, that sounds
So,
good. Yay,
and
fall.
three simple ingredients. So
Good, something to look forward to.
yes.
In those cool evenings.
Exactly.
Great.
So, again, thank you so much for coming. And to the viewers, we hope you've enjoyed the show and wishing you good health till next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.